So I think we're going to introduce ourselves first and then we'll give our thinkings. Is it? Cool. So a little bit about me. I, besides being the sacrificial poet last night, I come from a really strong youth development background. That is actually my trade and training, and was working as a senior youth development worker for about 8 years in the community, predominantly out in South Auckland, and then fell in love with creative arts and spoken word poetry as a vehicle to work with young people in the last 6 years. So just so you know that that's the context of which I'll be speaking to.
Kia ora koutou. I'm Stephen Wainwright, the Chief Executive of Creative New Zealand. I was always taught that grace came first and then you talked, so followed that kaupapa now. I'm all about the arts, as are you, so time is short, so I'll just move on to Denise.
Talofa everyone, my name is Denise Aura. I am a member of Massive Company. Just a bit of background, I am currently in my third and final year of studying a Bachelor of Arts at Auckland Uni, double majoring in English and drama. I've been a part of Massive for just over a year now, and yeah, so that's a little bit of the viewpoint like Grace that I'll be speaking from today.
Thanks, Denise. We're going to talk for a little bit about our reflections on the conference so far, and then the good news is we're going to get you to do some work, because I know that's what you really want at the end of a conference, and we'll have a bit of a kōrero, and then we will wrap up on time and on schedule. But over to you.
So I just wanted to share 3 sort of thinkings that I've had over the last 2 days at this funnel. The first one is, who are the young people that we are or want to work with? Why do we even want to work with them in the first place, and how are we actually going to go about doing that? So that's my first one. And then my second one will be, raise your hand here if you know what the youth development strategy Aotearoa is, or positive youth development models, or youth and community organisations in your local communities. Cool. Cool. So there's a fair amount of hands, but I would kind of put out there that potentially not enough. My question really would be how there's an amazing wealth of knowledge and expertise that are in this thing called the Youth Development Strategy, which is actually the best practice guideline developed by the Ministry of Youth Development way over 10 years ago around how to actually engage with young people in that. And I just wondered how many organisations and people feel really fully equipped to work with our young people in the creative arts. Yeah. So, for example, things that might come up, issues in that, how do we actually deal with that, with those things that might come up in our workshops and in producing our artworks? And the third thought was, I heard a lot of people speaking about having a holistic approach and working with young people, which is amazing. But I would challenge that the main focus with working with young people, the paramount principle, is relationship building, and then putting out there to funders potentially having to think about how do we actually value that essential relationship building that is required in order to engage with young people. Because you can have all the amazing resources and crazy cool art forms in the world, but unless we have the ability to have that relationship building with young people, it's really hard to get things going. So those are my 3 thinkings from this hui.
So a couple of my observations over the past couple of days. One, it was quite interesting when I came to the conference. I knew that the focus was youth and arts, but I wasn't really aware of what kind or part of youth that we were going to be looking at, and it became quite clear early on that it was school children or school students. It's quite interesting seeing the behind the scenes of what goes into arts in schools. That one presentation I was really interested in was Ngā Rangitahi Toa, because it kind of looked at providing art to students in alternative education, and that really interests me because I think that although there's this huge focus on arts and education, we need to look at arts for students who fall between the cracks, and also that transition from high school into the wider world, where we can grab the students there and provide arts to those people. I'm 20 years old, so I've kind of been through that transition, and I would have loved some kind of knowledge about exactly what's out there and my options and where I can go. And I realised that wasn't the main focus for the conference, but I would love to see it maybe in the future. And another observation that I had was a lot of admiration for the teachers in arts. It's really cool to see you guys laying kind of a foundation at that level, and it's quite interesting talking to different people and hearing the programs that they're setting up to help that flourish and help it keep going so it doesn't just finish when those kids leave school. And yeah, those are just a couple of the things I picked up.
Thanks, Denise. It goes without saying that it's a real privilege for us young people to have a chance to speak to you old guys. So kia ora for that. It's always great to meet with your tribe, and a lot of the value is outside the formal sessions, so I just want to acknowledge the rich conversations that I've had. But to go to the three things that I will take away, in particular, one, of course, goes to when John talked about his delivery of his bold project. I thought about the kind of preposterous ambition that sat behind that. You know, could you have planned something more gnarly? 13 productions, 13 different places, incredibly high community engagement, and enormous risk-taking. And I thought that probably goes to the heart of our issue, because we've got responsibilities, and it's that question of will and what we're prepared to take on to achieve what we need to achieve. And I thought that was a terrific reminder, John, about if you make yourself an incredibly unlikely promise, you can actually deliver on it if you try hard enough. So thank you for that reminder. I was delighted, of course, because it's great to talk about things, but then you see art and you kind of, it all comes home to you. So I was reminded, seeing those brief snippets from both Mixit and Massive and on the video today, Takirua, that in fact the exuberance of youth is not wasted on the young. In fact, it's perfectly positioned. And in fact, hearing stories from everybody in our society, in fact, lifts our mana collectively. Because if you don't have a voice, you don't have a place. And I think that goes back to what John said as well with those Somali refugee men. No one wants to be a pirate, but they want to be able to tell their story, because when your story is told and heard, you get a sense of belonging. And I think that's a powerful takeaway for me. And last, but by no means least, there was a lovely little phrase that Manu said, which I thought was just terrific, so hope you do too, which was that gifts need a helping hand to be transformed into talents. And I guess collectively, we're pretty much a good chunk of the helping hand available in the arts in our country. And it's a terrific honour to kind of have that role in somebody's life. And I know that we take that seriously, but it was great to be reminded of the responsibility that we have. And I had a fourth thing, actually this morning, talking to Leanne, our Australian friend, who said, and this is coming up to your homework, it wasn't a homework because you're going to do it right now, so it's day work, that in fact by preparing her presentation, it had been a terrific learning experience, because we in the arts are generally so busy doing that we think it's somehow a luxury to spend any time reflecting. And that's so true, Leanne. And as you would say, it's just not good enough. So what we're going to do now is we're going to phone a friend or speak to a neighbour, whichever's easier. And I'd like you to spend 7 minutes, maybe 7.5, reflecting on your takeaways from the conference. And then I'll call time at 7.5 minutes, and I'll leave you with another couple of minutes to, just for your own benefit, because we heard that good question this morning about the legacy. So one of the legacies from this two-day hui is that I would hope that there's a question or an action or a problem that we are each individually going to take responsibility for to address. And once you've done that, we will share what we're going to take forward, and hopefully you'll be generous enough to share some of the things that you'll take forward. So kia ora, get busy. And every time I was about to leave, it was been about 3 times. Kia ora, you may want to reflect a little privately, or keep talking to your friend or neighbour about the one thing that you will commit to as a result of our time. And we'll give about a minute and a half for that, and we'll do a bit of sharing and caring. Thank you.
Cool. So Stephen's asked me just to share my takeaway, my challenge for myself, and that is, how can my art practice empower our very diverse young people to leave their own legacies? Yeah. Malo.
Mine's kind of the same. So again, kind of the same. I'm in a point right now where I'm not really in a position of power that I can kind of hire a team and get them to go out and change things. So I suppose for right now, I can just continue to keep doing what I'm doing with the arts and with Massive, and hopefully let other youth and let other young people know that it's okay to explore and enjoy what we do. And it's okay to love acting and to love performing, and there's nothing wrong with it. And if I just keep doing that, hopefully I'll let young people know that as well.
We had a lot of talk about the curriculum and so on, so I thought one thing that we could promise, which might be helpful to you, and I hope will be helpful to us, is in a year or so, we will have, with our good friends at the Ministry, Department of Education, Pacific Island Affairs, and Te Puni Kōkiri, have collectively worked out what in this realm of education will we do together, and what people will take responsibility for separately, and help you guys to navigate your way through the current waters, which I expect are a little bit stormy at times and quite hard to navigate your way through. That's how it feels to us anyway. So that's a big job, but one that I think is worth energy. So that's us. We're very keen to hear from you about your takeaways from the conference.
I'm going to take away from this conference a total affirmation that if you're working with young people, you have to walk the talk of having young people take part in everything. This room should be half full of young people, and it's not. So it's not just about young people on the floor, it's about young people having a voice at governance level, at vision building level, really doing it. And I think we're kind of on the verge, a lot of organisations slightly scared of it, love to talk about it, let's do it.
I think the one thing that I'll take away is basically always enforcing, for myself especially, and for I've only just started working with young people, with teenagers and all that, is always trying to enforce the belief or the wanting to tell stories about who I am, what matters to me. Is there any relevance about having a voice? And if so, is there any relevance about telling stories? Because at the end of the day, I've got a theatre background, and obviously I'm a migrant from Africa, but there is a sense of, that I have felt, and also with my fellow African men, is that sometimes do people in this country, for example, this has got to do with me, not, is it relevant, what I've got to say? And I've kind of run away from what I think I should, what stories matter to me. So, especially watching Massive Theatre Company and Takirua today was so inspiring to just go, okay, these guys are really, really going forward about who they are and what it means to live in this time in New Zealand at the moment. So I'll take that away from this.
For me, I think of myself as a young person because I think I am a young person, because I am a young person. Yeah, I am. Would you believe it? Despite my youthful Eurasian complexion, I actually am young. I don't know how to stay young because I feel really divided at this conference because I feel a very us and them. And I look at young people out there and yet I am that thing. So I have to, my legacy is to work out how to stay young and not turn into an old person.
Kia ora. The thing for me is to look at arts as an occupation and a career path for young people. The experience is great, but we've all had careers in the arts, and I think there's a number of roles that young people can be mentored into to succeed to what we're doing, but to also acknowledge that there is employment and careers in the creative work that we do.
I think that the value of mentoring and internships has been coming through in so many of the wonderful programs we've been hearing about. And as an older person, I would really love to be able to help younger people, but also I'm sure that I have a huge amount to learn from younger people.
Kia ora tātou, I'm Maria Winder from the New Zealand Ukulele Trust. For me, one of the messages that has come through in a lot of the presentations is how important it is for the young people to tell their stories, to sing their song, and what an empowering experience that is for them. So I guess what I take away from this is how important it's going to be for us in our work with students. We have 3,000 kids from 150 schools in our program this year. For them to be singing their songs, the songs that they have written, the songs from their cultures.
Kia ora, thank you. All good things must pass. That time has come.